So we'd love for you to join us at 6:30, and then at 7 we'll have the Yawanawa concert, and then Abare. You already see the setup here in the middle. And tomorrow is kind of like integration day, so it means there will be a kirtan breakfast. And then throughout the day, there's not really something happening. The idea of the community day, the integration day, is that it's not just ending and all is over, but that you can keep connecting with people, just share the space, hang out here. You can also hang out on the beach, but this space will be open all day for you. And you can also go to the empathy team if you want some support, and then to the awareness team. And then in the evening we will have the concert of the Nokikols, and then community concert, which means whoever is a musician, has an instrument, you can contribute to it. I'm not sure if we can get everyone on the list, but there will be a list tomorrow where you can put your name on. That's it for now, and the rest I will talk about later. So we'll have Zach Bush here in a moment. And you're allowed to clap. But basically he's already here, obviously. and I would say one of his main themes on what he works on is to heal the disconnection from our own nature. He looks into microbiomes and how they affect human health, but also soil health, and in general, like our ecosystem. And one of the studies that he cites, which I find really interesting, is a testing of the frequency of joy and happiness compared to authenticity. And actually what they found is that authenticity has a 40 times higher vibration. Right, so authenticity meaning like all the emotions, and when we notice how much we haven't allowed ourselves to be authentic, how much grief comes up in noticing that and recognizing that this was one of the keys. I share this with you because that kind of symbolizes the kind of work he's doing, because he is an MD. He used to work as a normal doctor, so to say, in internal medicine. He also used to work in a hospice, but now he became an educator. And what he educates about is how we can actually go into this harmony that we need with our human health, with the health of the planet. And so please give me a hand to welcome Zach Bush.
Somebody a few minutes ago said you have a very distinctive voice. I feel, and then she said it was in my head this morning when I woke up. It's like an invasive weed in my voice. But I was told this is a music festival. I haven't gotten on stage as a musician in about 2 decades, so I just play for friends and family. And it feels like friends and family today, so I thought I'd grab a guitar. So I'm going to be able to share with you guys whatever comes through, whatever you're pulling through today. We might drop a mic down into the audience and see what's on your mind and hearts today as well. But to start things off, just a deep sense of gratitude that we all engage in the same spot on the planet. It's a little bit overwhelming to put yourself in a place where you're going to claim consciousness when bombs are being dropped on innocent people by your own government. So I just I just feel so much grief every single day these days. It's just so ridiculous to be able to get together with a group of humans like this, and yet these things are still happening. situations like this probably looked exactly like this in the late 1960s. And two great hippies met in Boulder, Colorado, and shortly thereafter I was born. And just as I was born, the Vietnam War was wrapping up. And it's kind of hard to believe that we're sitting here after all of the consciousness rise of that generation to witness that what actually came out of that generation was strip malls and the stock market, unicorn companies that would suck the air out of the earth. So it's really difficult to put the two things together, what we feel as our potential and what the behavior is that we see globally. There's pretty much two options at this point, it feels like, is to withdraw from the human situation and pull into our own enclaves and create bubbles that we can tolerate. Or go and change the whole fucking thing. And I feel like this festival is reaching for the latter. We've done a lot of festivals over the last couple of generations, and nothing really changed. We kept dropping bombs. We kept radicalizing another generation of children to go and murder children next door. In 2001, an incident happened in the United States that would be called 9/11. That was created to justify a war far distant and unrelated to that event, probably. And so my brother was inspired by that situation and went to war. So we got to see that through the lens of a brother, and I got to watch my parents survive that through the lens of a mother and a father. And it's heartbreaking that we're back in the same zone of the world, dropping bombs again. And we do it with such bravado, and we do it with all this chest pounding, and we do it as a moment to show off, it seems, without acknowledging what it actually means. That sounds too loud to me. So you're going to tell me, sound bad. How that sounds too loud. Once said that if you ever played more than two guitar chords, you're just showing off. So I'm going to play you a song with two guitar chords, so as to not show off any guitar prowess. Keep my ego in check. This is an A minor, and this is an E minor. And that A minor, followed by an E minor. Creates an energy in the air that feels like melancholy to me. It reminds me of sunshine shining through green leaves in the late afternoon with the sun cutting through at an edge onto gray bark. There's something about green leaves, gold sunshine, and gray bark that matches the way I feel inside when I look around this world and cry. So much light shining on so much beauty. And death follows. As a doctor, I sat by the bedside of thousands of patients, most of whom were in some form of dying. In my hospice work, I was seeing 80 patients a week to die for 4 years. That pace of death. And I want to tell you a little bit about what that looks like. It's important to the moment that we are living in today. There seems to be one common denominator at the end of death. We want to feel breath. The medical term is keystone breathing. I have seen little old women harnessed to a body that has melted away in hospital beds and nursing homes for decades, down to 60, 70 pounds of body weight, laying in a bed for months, unable to raise their head. Inexplicable that their soul would decide to stay connected to such a feeble structure. And yet their soul seems to want to stay anchored, so it stays. And then suddenly, one afternoon, without opening her eyes, that woman starts to breathe. It is the deepest breath that you've ever seen a human body take. It is truly unbelievable she's got any strength left to do that. Her chest expands. She takes in a ragged, huge breath. And then she blows it out. And without opening her eyes, she continues. Massive, deep breaths, every muscle in her body participating to breathe in more. Her toes extending so she can breathe more air into her body. Exhales again and again. An athlete pushing so hard for some finish line unseen yet. She's pushing so hard, she's breathing in so deep. And then she stops. And there's peace. There's quiet in the room. The body stays still. The nurses start to shuffle around. The doctor looks at the clock to mark the time of death. And then she suddenly breathes again. And she breathes massive. Bigger than she did last time. Ragged breaths, huge breaths, deep breaths. And she's breathing in and she's exhaling like there's no tomorrow. She'll do that for 2 hours. We can't understand where this energy is coming from. How is she possibly doing this? I can't breathe that hard. We're lucky to get in 30 minutes of breath work, and this woman's done 2 hours. And then she stops again. And the quiet's even deeper this time. I can feel her feeling her soul. And then she breathes again. I've seen people do this for 2 days straight. In and out of keystone breathing. It's hard to calculate the amount of DMT that would be produced in the body that's breathing that hard. Oxytocin. Bliss. She's floating above the bed in absolute freaking bliss. And her family members laying around, fearful of the loss that they're about to suffer, holding on to a hand, remembering her as a child, remembering her as a young child running through the forest. And she just keeps breathing while we cry at her bedside. And she floats there above her body in bliss, a soul connected and just wanting one more breath. I am quite convinced that I have watched people live more lifetimes, more days, more nights, more joys, more sorrows in that last couple days of breathing than they did their entire 80 years. And so what this reminds me of is the importance and the preciousness of breath. So as I signed the death certificate and drive home, I stopped by the bedroom of my children so I could watch them sleep and marvel at how easy they breathe. And note that I'm breathing somewhere between the ease of a child and somewhere the bliss of a dying woman. And so it is my hope that we learn to breathe like the child more often. And we take every opportunity to breathe today like we're dying. We need to live more fully, and so we need to breathe deeper. And we should do that together. Because you came in alone and you will leave alone, so there's only a few chances for you to breathe together. And I feel very blessed to be breathing with you today. And so I am moved in a state of gratitude for you, Willie Nelson. I got on stage with my phone so that I would set an alarm because I was determined I was going to beat Matthias DiStefano at keeping track of my time today. And then just looked down and realized I forgot to set the timer. So you're on, all right? Okay. All right. It's all of your fault. You guys are just so energetically charged. It's distracting. I think we should take some breaths together after that. So when we close our eyes, I want you to think about a loved one you've lost. Maybe a parent, maybe a grandparent. And we're going to just do a simple square breath. We're going to take a long, slow breath in together for a count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and hold it for 6. And release for 6. And hold at the bottom for 6. Long, slow breath in. Hold it at the top. Feel the CO2 building. CO2 is not the demon of this planet. It's actually the gas. It is the fuel for life. We've demonized the fuel for life. Exhale. Hold it at the bottom. Feel the stillness in your waters. Feel the desire to breathe building. And take a breath. Hold it at the top. Feel what happens in your brain as that CO2 starts climbing. Feel how good it feels. There's a reason we hold our breath before orgasm. Let your breath out. Hold at the bottom. Feel the stillness. You're still in your body right now. You chose another day to be human. Take a deep breath in. On your own, you let that out when you're ready. Just let it out. Just let it out and just relax now. Relax and feel your body. That. More of that. You're beautiful. You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job becoming human. Don't forget, okay? You remember everything you remember right now. Don't forget. Khalil Gibran 100 years ago was asked, how should we parent? She just did something amazing. What's her name? Eileen? Aaliyah. Aaliyah just did something amazing. Hi, Aaliyah. Khalil Gibran asked, how should we parent? And he said, it's very simple to parent. Every day you just strive to think more like your children, and you make absolutely sure you never teach your children to think like you. And so the first thing I saw Aaliyah doing was patting the shoulders around her after we finished breathing and clapping for them. You were clapping for the breathing. Good job, you big people. You remembered for a minute. Good job. You almost became a child again. Good job. Good job. And then she waved at me. Now she's clapping again. This is good. Then she waved at me, but she did something really remarkable that's right at this age. She's somewhere around between 18 months and 2 years, something like that. Where is she? She's at 18 months. So right at this moment, she's going through an amazing neurologic shift, and she just did it perfectly to demonstrate it. But she went to wave at me, and initially she did a couple like this, but then she turned it around and waved at me like this. And so, and then she turned it back around and waved like this. And so what's happening neurologically right now is fascinating. Around 18 months, before 18 months, a child will always wave at you like this, because they don't actually realize you're having a different experience from them. So they've had all these experiences of people waving at them like this, and so they're mimicking what they see other people doing, and so they don't realize you have a different perspective than them before 18 months. And right now, this little girl is starting to realize that everybody is seeing the world different than her. And this is what sets our children up for the terrible twos. Is that, holy cow, everybody is seeing something different. Nobody can see the world like I see it. I think that's what gives us our temper tantrums of 2 years old, is why isn't everybody seeing the world like I'm seeing it? And I can tell you I'm throwing a lot of fits late at night these days. I'm throwing my back in my terrible twos because I can't believe the world can't see the world like I can see it. And it breaks my heart so deeply that somebody can wake up in the morning and rationally think that it's a good idea to drop bombs on some distant place where there are children. What the frick is going on this planet? How can we be seeing the world so differently? We need to start waving at each other like this, because we need to realize that really the whole secret to life that we will find out when we are taking those big breaths is an opportunity. It was an opportunity to see ourselves. That was your soul incarnation. You incarnated an infinite soul in a finite body so that you could see yourself saying hello to yourself. And it's for all of our external expectations and views that we keep being disappointed. If you realize that every day was just so that you could wake up and go like this again. Hi, you. You freaking decided to be crazy again today. You decided to stay in the amnesia of being human one more day. That's some sort of poppycock crazy, but I'm so glad you did it. Hi. So glad to see you. If that was what we did every morning, wars would stop immediately. But because we're running around going like this, hey,
Hey, look at me. Hey, respond to me right. How come you didn't say hi to me? How come I'm not getting back the same energy that I'm putting out? And so we externalize our soul purpose immediately upon 18 months of age because of social training and because of the contract we signed as human. The most mischievous motherfucker on the planet is Matthias DeStefano. He somehow snuck past the guards and did not sign the fucking NDA amnesia thing and got through with some sort of memory intact. And I never know when I'm listening to him, should I just be blown away or should I be really fucking annoyed that he's got the whole playing book and I'm just sitting here every morning being like, I wonder what I should eat for breakfast. Like, where did I put my fucking keys again? And Matthias, meanwhile, is like, in 2065, I will be doing this. I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Matthias and I have had some of the most magical moments humans will ever experience together. We were in the King's Chamber, I don't know, a year and a half ago with some amazing beings, some of them here, Emily Fletcher and others, Blue of Earth, put this event together. And it was one of those moments where you feel like a child again, because you're suddenly playing in a sandbox that's unseen by most of our daily experiences. And suddenly you realize, oh my gosh, we're seeing the same thing. And so that has been one of the healing parts of my life, is to find people around the world that are starting to see the world like I've been starting to see the world. And I've been on a long deconstruction of the artifice of reality that I was handed when I was 18 months of old. And have been long diving into that with all of you to find out, what are we here to do? For some reason, I'm feeling compelled to tell you a little bit about what I do on a daily basis. And I don't usually do that to audiences because it runs the risk of sounding mundane. But I feel like it's maybe relevant because I feel like this event, Colibri, is asking us to look past a one-week festival and starting to ask that bigger question of what the freak are you going to create now? What are you going to build together now to change the whole freaking story? And so I'm excited as we move past spiritual experiences and start to build a material world from our spiritual awareness. We've got to stop chasing the spiritual highs, and we need to every day become dedicated to creating a new material world from our spiritual knowledge. So I'm going to try to do this. This is usually a presentation I'm doing to companies or family offices or governments or something, and it's big PowerPoint with images and all that, and it seems fancy. So I'm going to try to do this with waving of hands, and I think it's going to be better this way. And so I'm going to start at a simple thing. You may have heard me talk about this before, but it took me 30 years of basic science and cell biology to figure this next sentence out. The definition of life is a concentration of light energy. That's 30 years of my scientific career. That's all I figured out so far. Life is the concentration of light energy. We do this on this planet through carbon. And so we have the miracle of chlorophyll, which is a complex microbiome inside of plants. So small bacteria develop the ability to move inside of the cellular structures of fungi. And so fungi are single-celled organisms that then stack on top of each other to make really huge structures. The mycelial network under the ground can run for kilometers. And so single cells that participate in kind of like a bunch of Legos saying, hey, we could build a tower. But at no point is the tower a single organism, it's a bunch of Legos. Then suddenly chlorophyll, these little tiny bacteria, came into collaboration and built the first little engine for grabbing CO2 out of the atmosphere and storing sunlight. And so that happened a few billion years ago, if the record of our timeline is at all relevant. And that little thing rushed inside of mycelial structures and started to create so much more energy than had been ever available before. And so chlorophyll started concentrating CO2 into long carbon chains that we would call carbohydrates or fats. And stored between each of those carbon bonds is a photon of sunlight. And so suddenly there was so much more energy being concentrated, and it was exciting because bacteria and fungi suddenly started to boom in their innovation, their creativity, and their capacity to build larger structures because there was so much more energy available by fermentation. And so bacteria and fungi use fermentation to crack the carbons apart to release the photon of sunlight inside. And so we have these generative engines of carbon capture in anything green. It's passed into the microbiome, and then it's passed up the food system through plants, animals, and the rest. And at each point is a higher concentration of sunlight. Some estimates are suggesting that a single mitochondria, which is the innovation inside of a multicellular creature like a tree or a human, that allows for the carbons to be broken apart. So chlorophyll put the carbon together, mitochondria break the carbons apart. It's the collaboration of two different parts of the microbiome. It's beautiful. But in releasing the photonic energy of sunlight, we get this huge generative engine on the back end of sunlight concentration, and maybe 10,000 times brighter per cubic centimeter than the surface of the sun. 10,000 times brighter than the surface of the sun is life. And that light is turning into lots of different things, including the photonic to material world. So a photon of light can either be a wave or a particle, good old Einstein times here. And so a lot of that sunlight is being turned into the particle that you'll be next. It turns out that your body is disappearing and reappearing every millionth of a second at the particle level. As the light has to keep dissolving into the black hole and then popping back out into material form again. So it takes so much light energy to be cranking out as many particles as you're cranking out every millionth of a second. 1 million times a second, 1/1000. Million times you just recreated your body. It takes so much light energy to pump that, and let alone then put function to that, enzymes, et cetera, et cetera. And so as we start to ponder life, we realize we are these burning, bright engines of energy that we would call life. And miraculously, the physicists have been struggling for 100 years, blinded to the possibility that the obvious answer is sitting right in front of them because they're physicists, not biologists. But you'll remember Einstein on to today. You've got physicists arguing over relativity. That's Einstein's work of measuring all the weird mechanics and laws of nature at the macro level of the cosmos, and quantum physics, which is all the rules and regulations and laws at the tiny, tiny fractal levels of nature below. I believe the unifying field theory is not a mathematical equation. I believe it is life. Life sits between the quantum physics and the relativity. And mathematically, we found out that life sits dead center between the smallest thing and the largest thing in 2010 when Nassim Haramein, many of you know Nassim, when Nassim published his paper called The Universal Scaling Law, he demonstrated that if you plot the entire everything known in the universe against the vibration of the frequency of vibration against the radius of that structure, you get a very straight line. It's amazing. Smallest thing, highest vibration, Planck's constant. Sheesh, super high note. Tiny, tiny, tiny wavelength. Planck's constant is the measure of the wavelength of the electromagnetic field in the vacuum. It's the measure of the electromagnetic wave. The largest thing measured is the universe itself, and it has the lowest tone imaginable. And I love that the universe has a tone. I wish I had ears to hear it because it must be very relaxing. Like when you hear whales calling to each other, that's a low note. But when you hear the universe calling to her children, what would that feel like? That must feel good. And I think that's what that woman is listening to 2 days into Kusmal breathing on her deathbed. She's in a bliss state in DMT, hearing the universe calling her child back. She's hearing it. She feels it. She's being called back. She's not dying. She's being called back into the fold, past the amnesia of being human. Welcome back into a global experience, a cosmic experience of being an eternal soul that has iterated so many times into so many things. And so between the high note and the low note, dead center is human life. I find this just so freaking impossible. How could we be at the dead center mathematically from a cosmos that's measured by 2.5 trillion galaxies, each with 10 billion suns, and the atomic structure that makes me a particle state and an expression, the finite of the infinite of a human called Zach? It's too ridiculous. Like, why did they call me Zach? Like, it should have been like, magnanimous being of the universe that is now vibrating in a finite body that is here. Zach. Like, we all got undersold people. We need a new marketing department for humans. You are the dead center of the universe. You are the mathematical center point. You are the event horizon of all things. Wow, that's kind of interesting. What if that's true? So I've started building a bunch of companies around carbon, and it's been 15 years of building companies and trying to use carbon as a single unifying metric for the future that we all want to live in. And it's gotten pretty interesting. We're getting pretty damn close, and so we just presented to Saudi Arabia in January. And Saudi is one of the most progressive groups of leaders that this world knows right now. That should be a surprise to you. The women of Saudi are taking control. These women are rising. A couple years ago, MBS, the Crown Prince, removed all of the religious police from his country, offering them extrication or stay and retrain your minds and the way you think, and I'll pay you twice as much. They all went back to university, they went to different environments, and they stayed, and they changed their behavior. And they no longer got paid to terrorize women and people looking for freedom. And so women are all over Riyadh right now, running around without their hijab, driving their cars, things that would have been killed for a couple years ago. These women are rising in a society that's decided they have a very short amount of time to make the right decisions for 7 generations from now. They are the first government that I've been able to sit with that is thinking generationally. My government is doing the absolute opposite. I have sat with senators, I've sat with congresspeoples. My government is struggling to think about tomorrow, let alone next year, let alone the next election cycle, let alone 7 generations from now. It's outside of their capacity to think that way now. And so I'm so grateful to Saudi and the kingdom that knows that their great-great-great-great-grandchildren are their goal. How do we make sure they're still on Earth? What are we going to do on an Earth that is heating up on a daily basis in a desert that can reach intolerable temperatures today and make the whole place intolerable? They'll hit 55 degrees Celsius a couple days this year. They know that change is needed, and they're making some really radical decisions as a leadership group around many different things. But what I proposed in January was exciting to me because it's putting into motion all of the companies I've started around carbon. And I went to Saudi and I said, my government has been demonizing carbon for the last 25 years at a political level to disenfranchise and disadvantage all of the oil-producing countries of the world because they have all the power ultimately. And so we had to create a narrative that was going to disadvantage oil countries. And we were going to have to come up with a huge narrative that they were actually destroying the planet. And meanwhile, US and German companies would take all of that oil into small molecule chemicals that would be destroying every inch of this planet through chemical agriculture and every cell of every human being through chemical pharmaceuticals. And we would make that out of oil. And so this began in 1910 with this revelation that oil was much more valuable broken down into small molecule chemicals than sold as fuel. And it was the West that took over that. That was the Rockefellers and all of that. And the Middle East and North Africa and Russia and the rest kept making oil. And there is an opportunity for us to understand the dynamics of carbon is not the poison, but actually the solution for a future planet that we want to live on. And so I suggested to Saudi, we are going to rebrand all of the oil countries into soil countries. And these soil countries are going to start closing the carbon loop. And we are going to regreen the deserts together. And then we're going to start with the Sahara Desert, and that's going to regreen the Middle East, and that's going to regreen Siberia, which is going to regreen North India, which is going to regreen China. 1/3 of the planet is currently under desert, but it wasn't 2,000 years ago. When the Romans needed the largest food system in the world, they didn't plant it in Europe because Europe had already destroyed its soils. They planted it into what's now the Sahara Desert. North Africa was the largest food system in the world just a couple thousand years ago. Less than that even, 1,500 years ago. The largest wheat fields, largest olive groves in the world, built the largest export city, which was Alexandria, sitting in the Sahara Desert, exporting all that food back into Europe and the whole Roman Empire. When we look at a map today, because we are so limited in our imagination as humans, we just assume the Sahara Desert's always been Sahara Desert. Look at all that sand. It must have been there for millions of years. Nope. It was deep soils that supported the largest grasslands in the world that then were used as the fodder for the largest agricultural systems in the world. So Saudi is the chair of the Green MENA Association, Middle East, North Africa. And so 26 countries have already understood that they could regreen the deserts, but they haven't operationalized that yet. And so my nonprofit project Biome is offering to them the opportunity to partner with us, and we'll be the operational partner for Green MENA. And we'll put into motion everything we've been developing in Africa and in the United States and beyond to start regreening those deserts with Mother Earth, because she already started the process. Because she does this every 20,000 years. She takes abject desert back into grasslands in a very predictable cycle. And she does this by changing the water table. And the water table started to change radically over the last couple years, and it shifted massively in the last year. The way the water table changes is the magnetic field of Mother Earth changes. Matthias de Stefano was telling us how horrible this sun is. I have a slightly different narrative. I think it's fucking amazing. I love Father Son. I think it gives us life because life is a concentration of light energy. And I think Matthias would agree. But we need to stop demonizing the sun. We need to understand that its role is to generate life on the planet through its participation with green things. And so this energetic field, this magnetic field of the earth that protects us and puts us into right relationship with the sun, changes quite frequently. Every 200,000 years, the magnetic North Pole becomes the South Pole. The globe literally reverses its polarity. And it's about to do that, it seems. And this will be a very interesting thing because it hasn't actually happened in human history because we're way delayed on this pole shift. Cyclically, when you're looking at the geologic bed, you can see these shifts in the way that rock forms, crystals form, and all that. Every 200, 250,000 years. And then suddenly there's a long pause. 700,000 years, the poles haven't shifted. Interesting. Whenever nature pauses, she's getting ready to do something she's never done before. Whenever nature pauses, she's getting ready to do something bigger and better than she's ever done it before. It's a breath hold. When the earth holds her breath, what gas starts going up in the atmosphere? CO2. You guys just did it yourselves. You held your breath for 6 seconds. You could feel it rising in your brain. She's holding her breath right now. And she's holding her polarities for a very long period of time, ready for a massive flip. When she unleashes the next life on Earth, you are not going to believe the beauty that's going to happen here. More biodiversity, more intelligence, more beauty than you can possibly imagine. The poles started to move right when I was born, and I don't think those two were associated. I don't think it was my fault. But I find it interesting that I have lived every day of my life with every day in a different magnetic field. The North Pole has been steadily moving thousands of kilometers. It actually favored North America in its polar shift at the time I was born, and now it's over in Siberia. And so it's moved this dramatic thousands of kilometers over the course of my life. And so every single day I wake up, my North Pole is different. Does that resonate with your last 50 years of life? Has every day felt like you're on a different target and that you're frustrated because things are not the same as they were yesterday and the goalpost keeps moving? I'm super excited that nature is moving the goalposts right now. Nature is moving the North Star. The North Pole is shifting. And so as we start to build companies around energy, health, and ecology, we find out that all three overlap at a single molecule of carbon. Our energy system that we call food, our energy system that we call fuel and all of this, and our energy system that we would call ecology, all is based on the rate of exchange of carbon across these different systems of air, soil, water, air, soil, water. And so when you hear scientists getting together, wringing their hands, saying the Earth is doomed because CO2 has reached 400 parts per million in the atmosphere, they've chosen that measurement because it's almost an irrelevant thing. 400 parts per million, like what's part per million? What is that relevant? What about like percentage of the atmosphere? How much of our air we're breathing is actually CO2? I'll give you a clue that 71% of it's nitrogen, about 21% of it's oxygen. So we're at 92%. How much of it is CO2? 0.04%. But if the scientists ran around and said 0.04% of the atmosphere is CO2, you would not panic. And so I think it's interesting that we tell stories to create fear, guilt, shame, FOMO, everything else, without understanding the dynamics of the organism that we're living within. We are living on a planet that shifts all of the time. And so my excitement about changing oil companies and countries to soil countries is that we can get them to participate in closing the carbon loop by capturing everything that's made out of carbon back into soil inputs. And the biggest one we have is agricultural waste today. Bagasse, which is sugar cane after the sugar's been collected, is the #1 waste product globally. It's measured in the billions of tons. We consume a lot of sugar on this planet, and most of it doesn't go into a teacup anymore. Most of it goes into ethanol in a gas tank in India or a gas tank in the United States, etc. So we're using ethanol, we're using carbon chains made from sugar, those carbohydrates that were stored, we're using that to run our vehicles because it's a lot of energy, carbon energy. And so when we start to take the bagasse back into fuel, instead of using it as a waste product, we can turn that into fuel. So that's my company, Resource Dynamics. We set out 10 years ago actually to solve the plastics problem because my biotech company, which is Biomic Sciences, we started in 2012, had found out that Earth had planted in her soils 60 million years ago carbon molecules that were the antidote to the glyphosate that we're spraying her soils with today. And I was just dumbfounded when I found that. I was like, that's grace. That's the definition of grace. Grace is an earth that will plant in her soil 60 million years ago the antidote to the poison that will kill her soils in the future. That is eloquent. And so when we saw that happen under the microscope in human cells and saw human cells repairing and regenerating at rates never seen before in science, because we've only studied human biology in a sterile petri dish, note that. Any peer-reviewed science article you've ever read on human disease or health has only studied humans in isolation. It has no idea the grace of nature in a connected biosphere. Therefore, it does not believe in healing. The Western medical paradigm is built on the belief that humans are isolated from their nature and therefore you cannot heal disease. And what we saw as soon as we put carbon molecules from 60 million years ago back on human cells is they repair immediately. The regeneration is insane. Not only is it a regeneration of the wounding from glyphosate, we've shown it to be bulletproof to glyphosate. We put these carbon molecules from our fossil soils onto a cell membrane, and you can pour glyphosate, and the cell membrane gets stronger, not weaker. Not only is it an antidote, it is a pathway to a stronger cellular system than we've ever had before. She is about to do something she's never done before. Life is about to get so good here on Mother Earth. And maybe we need to die to let her do that. And I am totally good with that death plan. That sounds like a good reason to drink the Kool-Aid and die in the desert. Like, if we go, she thrives, sign me up. But what she keeps telling us is, no, I'm going to thrive because you are here. You are a keystone species. You just forgot your birthright. And I'm going to remind you by bringing all of the solutions to your children so that they dream new dreams and they remember new memories And they find out their birthright was to be the ultimate keystone species this planet would ever know. I'm going to bring a potent ace in the hole onto stage right now. Zaina Aldana, will you come up here? Zaina is a dear colleague and friend and adventure partner to me. She's traveled the world this year with me, and I have gotten to witness this woman opening up portals all over the world. This is Zaina.
Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here, share the stage with Zach for a bit. Beautiful souls. I'm on this beautiful journey of meeting soul family all around the world, and I've met so many of you this past few days. Such a beautiful platform to share a bit of magic together. Thank you.
I don't know if Fatima's here in the audience, but Fatih, thank you for getting me connected to this woman. I texted Fatima in January. I was like, hey, I'm coming to Dubai for a couple weeks, and I really don't want to stay in a hotel. Is there anybody in your network that would put me up in a guest room or something like that? And so she put it out on a social post. Is there anybody willing to take a guest for a couple weeks? Didn't mention the name, fortunately. And Zaina reached back out, and she said, I'll take the bush. And so she welcomed me into her home, and she blew my mind as soon as I walked into her house. Her house has been rebranded the Temple of Light. And in the middle of Dubai, this woman has opened up a massive portal of consciousness. And it's been a real privilege and honor to witness her. I brought her and a colleague to Zambia to do an immersive experience for 22 people in the Zambian bush recently. And we got to play sound bowls and experience this in the middle of Africa under a baobab tree that was over 1,000 years old that had never heard sound bowls before. And that gives you a sense of what it looks like to be a keystone species as humans. We get to bring beauty in a form and a shape to every place on earth because we are human. The only thing that we have done that has never caused any harm is our art. The only thing we've ever done that has done no harm is our art. And so we came up with a quick description of the magic that we created. Zaina would start playing the sound bowls, Vivian would start the breath work, and then I would talk. And we realized after all of this, like, that's pretty amazing. We just saw 22 people completely transformed after 5 days of this. And all we did was ding, 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 blah, blah, blah. So that's what we became. We were ding, 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 blah, blah, blah. And so today you're going to get ding, 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 blah, blah, blah. And we did a little bit of, so it's good. It's going to change everything. And so Zaina's going to start toning for us. And the reason we need the tones going is to shift the understanding between the words. In ceremony with this being, I encountered her whole soul. And there are a number of portals on the surface of the earth that allow energy to transpire across different dimensional phases of the earth. The Kabbalah, one of the oldest sciences on the earth, is explained way back when that there were 7 layers of existence, 7 realities that exist in parallel on the earth. And there are different frequencies that connect these things. And there's portals that are openings between these dimensional spaces. And I got to witness this soul. And she is literally holding open a giant portal over the Middle East right now. She was born in Lebanon, Beirut, when bombs were falling. And she grew up for decades in that war. And then moved herself to Dubai 22 years ago and started one of the most successful marketing companies in Dubai. And she runs PR and brand development for luxury brands coming out of Europe to the Middle East. And so she works with all of the best craftsmen in Europe to bring those to the Middle East. So what would it look like if somebody wasn't here just to spiritually open up a portal, but to build a world that is full of beauty? And so my companies are running around taking my spiritual experiences into carbon-centric companies of energetic change, energetic shift. And Zaina and her giant team at Z7 are bringing the beauty of the antiquity from Europe into the Middle East to build bridges of beauty between these two worlds. And beauty seems to be a really unifying language between these things, between these peoples. And I want us to think about that, because I think there's a way for us to relegate luxury as something that isn't conscious. You know, like luxury is the thing over there that's lots of money, only rich people can afford it. To understanding luxury is when two hands craft something into beauty and then exchange that to another human being. We need to start to live luxurious lives. We need to move away from the puritanical spirituality that I was raised in. And I want to live in a luxurious, material world of spiritual expression. That's what it's going to feel like. And so I want you guys to go home in these next days and months and wonder at what am I doing with my companies? Maybe I need to just simply reframe what I'm doing. Maybe I don't need to believe that there's cognitive dissonance between my current job and my spiritual experience at Colibri. What if they're the same thing? I just was given the wrong lens to look through my job at. What are you doing that feels like is in cognitive dissonance? Maybe you need to stop that and go and do something different, but maybe you just need to see it through a different lens. Maybe CO2 is not the enemy. Maybe it's the currency of a future that is about to birth. These are the reframes we need to start to understand. What is nature actually expressing through humans? Because we can run around and I can damn Monsanto and Bayer and all these chemical companies, or I can wonder at the fact that, oh my God, when we look back from 2,000 years in the future, we're going to realize that the oil companies did more for the future of the planet than any other industry, because they brought deep carbon resources that had never been breathed by a plant in tens of millions of years to the surface so that it could be breathed again. Did the oil companies get created by nature? Just as ants would crawl into the earth and dig tunnels to liberate the nutrients in new ways, did she build a species that would tunnel into her surface to bring all of the available carbon to the surface so that her next breath would be the fucking biggest breath ever taken? Because not this much carbon has been available ever in planetary history. That's your oil companies reframed. We need to hold them accountable to the same metric that the chemical companies should be held accountable for, which is how much biodiversity is coming forth from your company, not how much carbon are you bringing out. With this, I showed Saudi that they are 1 or 2 steps away from producing more biodiversity and more vibrant energy on the surface of the planet than any country ever has, through a simple reframing of carbon. And so we are going to unleash beauty, not by some sort of genius technology. We're not going to wait for Elon Musk's next metal tube to shoot into the air and be amazed when it lands back on Earth. I don't know why we keep showing that on Instagram. If I see another Elon Musk rocket landing on the surface of the planet, I'm going to go crazy. So some dude, some white guy, filled a steel tube with rocket fuel and lit it, and it shot up in the air, and then it fell back down. And we're all 8 billion people like, holy shit, watch that again and again. We're spending millions of hours on watching the tube fall back down. When meanwhile, some woman in the Philippines in a tin shack just self-organized the minerals and materials of the earth and made them available to a soul that would burst forth from one cell into 70 trillion cells, manifesting light energy at 10,000 times that of the sun. And she would not get a headline. When are we going to remetric the value of life and start to tell that story and understand everything that's coming through humans has to do with that, because that's how nature works. You are not outside of nature no matter how belligerent you are acting. Our oil companies are not outside of nature. Our chemical companies are not outside of nature. And so when we look back in a couple thousand years at the rebirth of the planet, will we marvel that it was the oil companies that brought all of the CO2 to the surface, that we would breathe more air and have deeper grasslands, deeper soil systems than any time in a 4 billion year history. And it was the chemical companies that put the entire system under such extreme stress, under extinction level stress. Millions of species went under stress to the point of extinction. Tens of thousands, if not millions, went extinct in the process. And in that process, every one of them misspelled all of their genes, as we all do when we're under stress. We start misspelling our genes, and we start exuding those into the environment around us in exosomes. Those have been demonized as viruses. CO2 is the next breath of an earth that's about to breathe. Viruses are the next genetic expression of a reality that hasn't happened yet. Reframe that stuff. Reframe that stuff. There are 10 to the 31 viruses in the air we're breathing. That is one with 31 zeros after it. To put that in perspective, in my little human body, there's 10 to the 15, which is 10 billion viruses. Different viruses, not some repetitive. There's 10 billion different genetic codes that are circulating my body right now, and every single one of my 70 trillion cells is scanning those 10 billion new genetic codes to say, I think that one's my next opportunity. I want to try that one. I'll try that one. Give me that one. My cells are scanning constantly. Gain of function, gain of function, gain of function. I am a more powerful being today than I was yesterday because I am scanning all possibilities and I am becoming more beautiful than I was yesterday. That's a reframing of aging. I am not interested in longevity. I do not want to live to 180 years. I don't care about longevity. I have hives every time somebody says that word now. I can't even stand the concept that humans are running around trying to cling to life. I can't believe we're putting red lights in our rooms instead of just watching sunset. I can't believe that we're doing ice baths instead of getting in the river. I can't believe that we're doing mineral baths instead of just jumping in the ocean. I can't believe we're building a $150 billion industry out of nature in a box instead of just going out in fucking nature. It drives you crazy. And on top of that, aging is freaking beautiful. Go ahead. I had an amazing experience. I guess it was 1 weekend ago, 2 weekends ago. But Zane and I were holding ceremony with a group of friends. That was put together by Cinta. I think Cinta's here in the audience probably somewhere. Cinta and Mateo put together an extraordinary experience with a Brazilian shaman, and we did ceremony in Devon in the UK. And the moment I showed up there, I wasn't going to do any medicine. I was just done with ayahuasca. I'd done that a couple times before, and I was like, yeah, that plant's done with me. And then I showed up, and of course, like the whole setting is magnificent, and Maestro Andre is like the most epic musician ever out of Brazil. And so I was like, okay. Maybe a little bit of ayahuasca. And the moment I was taking ayahuasca, my foot did something that's only happened a few times, where I get this incredibly painful reactive arthritis. And I went into one of the most extreme states of pain I've ever been in my life over those next few days. And for the very first time, I could not escape the body. And I was so in the body, and ayahuasca just took me straight down. Not only could I not exit the body, I couldn't exit my foot, and pretty soon I couldn't exit the foot, I couldn't exit the pain. Pretty soon I was the pain. Aging is beautiful, and it is accompanied by pain, because pain brings us present like nothing else. And if I need pain to become the most authentic, beautiful version of myself, I sign up for the pain. I will be in pain today if that's what it takes for me to remember who the fuck I am, and to bring me so present that I vibrate so intensely that I can feel myself, so that tomorrow morning when I wake up in the mirror, I go like this. Hello, beautiful soul. Thank you for being back in a painful body today. Thank you for willing to step one more time. When it's your foot, it's so interesting because you now metric everything by how many steps do I have to take. And I was in an airport a few days later, and you turn one of those corners, and it's like you can't even see the end of the hallway, and you're just like, oh, I'm in the pain, and I'm going to do the walk. And every step, you're right there in the foot, and you're right present, and you're in it, and you're in it, and you can feel the pain go up underneath your toenails. You can feel it become the cellular structure, the vibration, and you're just breathing. And by the time you finally get to the end of that airport hallway, you realize you're more present than you've ever been in an airport, ever. And you can't believe that's the kind of carpet we picked. Like, what? That's what we put in there? I had never noticed the carpet before. Like, if we would just be in more pain, maybe we'd design better internal spaces. Right? Because it brings you present, and it forces you to acknowledge what are the priorities in life. And I got to a state of pain where food was irrelevant. I was like, no, that's like 32 steps. Forget the food. I'm good. I'll fast for 5 days. And so I danced here with you guys last night. It was the most my foot's experienced in a couple weeks. And then these hard boards were punishing my feet. And finally I had to go and find my flip-flops. And I loved it because I put my flip-flops on, and then one of you behind me tapped my shoulders like, you can't be wearing those shoes in here. You're going to step on somebody's toe. I looked at that woman and I thought to myself, I'm not even going to move my feet. How could I possibly step on somebody's foot? And so I stood there and did my dance for a while until my foot started to feel better. And then it turns out that if you dance long enough, the pain goes away. And I danced pain-free last night for hours once we were up here on stage and everything else without my flip-flops and everything else. And suddenly the floor becomes you, and you become the floor. And you become super present when you're dancing. And time goes away, and you become an eternal being. You become an eternal being dancing with 2,000 other souls that decided to incarnate right now and burn 10,000 times brighter than sun so that we could sweat together, breathe together, be real together. And so this is what my companies started to realize is we got to go into the wound. We got to stop trying to cover up the wound, which Western medicine has been doing chronically. This began for me when I was at the University of Virginia designing chemotherapy. I wish I could actually let you feel what it feels like in my body every time I think back on this time in my life. I wish you could feel what it feels like to wake up one morning and realize that you have been told a narrative, a story that you believed that would convince you to poison thousands of patients every year. And you would sit at the bedside convincing them this is your only pathway to life, is for me to poison you. And I would hold their hands while the poison dripped into their veins. And I would hold their hands and I would tell them why this is necessary and tell them. And I was in love. I was coming from my most authentic version of myself at that time, and we could judge whether that was awake or not, and it's almost irrelevant because it's a fragment more awakeness that I have now than I did then. And so I meant well, but I was poisoning the shit out of my patients with diabetes drugs, antidepressants, antihypertensives, anti-cholesterol, anti-everything, anti-cancer. I had put myself in opposition to life as a doctor. That drives you to suicide at a high rate. Doctors have a higher suicide rate than most other professions in the world, with the exception of farmers. And I find it interesting because we both go into our industries with a good sense of altruism, and we're trained by the same companies. That's interesting. We're trained by the same companies. Bayer is training farmers how to spray glyphosate into their farm fields, and Bayer is selling the drugs that would treat the diseases that would come from the glyphosate. And so it's a very interesting closed-loop circle of depression. And we can blame the chemical companies, or we can come to terms with, oh my gosh, we all created this torture chamber of the human condition when we outsourced our food in the 1950s to say, you know what, we'll take TV dinners, we'll take Twinkies, we'll take Wonder Bread. When we decided processed food was convenient and easy and a good drug, we created Monsanto, we created Bayer. We have created these companies through an interest in torturing ourselves. I really believe we're here for the pain, because there's some trick that's going to happen if we go into the pain. There's some trick, just like Mother Earth saying, oh, it looks like you're destroying me with all this oil you're pouring out and all of the destruction of microbiome and the destruction of the massive extinction. She's got tricks up her sleeve, and she always does, because everything is on an ascension path towards source. everything, all of the time, is on an ascension towards source. And so it's impossible that there isn't a flip of the equation about to happen. And maybe it takes a pole switch to occur. But the shift is about to happen. And if you go into the pain, if you go into the wound, you will find the antidote. And so that's what we did for Resource Dynamics, which is my energy company. We started looking at microplastics as the second largest problem behind glyphosate. Glyphosate, pretty big problem. We spray about 4 billion pounds, over 2 billion kilograms of that substance into our soil and water system every year. 2 billion kilograms of a poison into our water system in the name of growing food. All of that chemical pressure is putting extinction level stress on millions of organisms, millions of species of organisms, measured in the quadrillions of existence, that are all spelling new genetics. And so is it possible that we came here to put the earth under the greatest stress and then make available the highest amount of resources possible for her rebirth? The earth is going to go through a radical rebirth in these coming years, and that might be measured in thousands of years, million years, or decades, but it will happen. This earth is going to be radiant in her beauty, and humans will have contributed to that. Even in our lowest vibrational states of me sitting by patients, poisoning them in the name of health, I was putting their entire bodies under stress. And some of them went through radical remissions. And some of them healed. And the birth that they had into that new body carried new genetics because of the stress they'd been put under. And some of them, many of them, most of them, obviously died and left behind the genetic codes for the future intelligence on the planet in their exit. Nobody is not participating in the future of this planet. Every single soul, every single bacteria, fungi, earthworm, human, in its stress today is participating in the reimagination of a greener, more verdant, more intelligent earth. And so we need to lose the fear story. We need to lose the damnation and judgment. If there's one way we could radically change this world today, it is lose judgment. Would you join me in stopping the judgment on our armies that are dropping bombs? Can we do that? That's hard to do. That is hard for me to forgive my own government for what my brother and all of his colleagues did in Iraq, what we're doing in Iran today. What's happening all over the world is hard to forgive, and it is hard not to judge. But literally the last line of one of the biggest, most important texts of the 20th century that became known as the Course of Miracles, the last freaking line in that tome of wisdom says, the last thing that I will do in this human body is let go of judgment. I got very excited about that, and for years was talking about that until I suddenly realized the first part of the sentence. I got so tied up in the excitement of losing judgment. I was like, oh my God, can you imagine a world without judgment? Can you imagine how much love we would be able to convene upon and express? It'd be magnificent. And then that first half of the sentence hit me a couple years in. The last thing that I will do in this human body. Is it possible we all have new human bodies the moment we let go of judgment? And we don't need to wait until our last breath to let go of judgment? Because we all do. I've seen it thousands of times. Everybody, before they go into small breathing, forgives everything. They let go of the judgment on themselves. And they start going like this. And that's why they breathe so hard at the end of life. It's because it feels so good to take at least 100 breaths before you die in a state of no judgment. Can you imagine what it would feel like to breathe without any judgment on yourself? Without any sense of insecurity, without any sense of incompleteness, without any belief that you're not enough. That would feel so freaking good. To take a breath without any judgment. And wouldn't you just birth a new body immediately if you did that? And so we're going to have to let go of activism, which is a big deal, because the last couple generations have really put our identity in that thing. We were activists. We were anti-war. We were anti-bacterial. We were anti-cancer. We were anti-obesity. We were anti-diabetes. We're anti-forestry services, we're anti-fisheries, we're anti, everything you can think of. For our judgment. You're the enemy, oil company. You're the enemy, somebody. We're going to stop you. How much more powerful when we become proactive instead of active? When we become perhaps still instead of reactive or active? What if the activists become still? What if we all become still? That'd be a freaking revolution overnight. Because they're betting on your inability to stay still. The powers that be, i.e. those that are wielding a lot of money and manipulation of human systems today, have a very easy job of it because you're so damn reactive. And it's so easy to trigger all of us into a dysfunctional state. Just throw out an Instagram war, and everybody suddenly believes there's war going on, and we're in World War III. I don't know if that's even a real story at this point. We dropped a bunch of bombs in the desert. The reports coming out of Iran is that no damage was done. No targets were really hit. And yet the U.S. is saying that there's a war and we've won it. And so this is a very interesting thing, is that because we are reactive, we buy stories immediately and we compartmentalize them. We are either anti-story or we're pro-story or we are active. To give up activism is to give up judgment, is to start to become still. My first revolution of my life came in when I fell out of my head. 17 years in academia, top of my class, crushing it on, I was chief resident, I was like out to be the chair of the department, I was like going to be at the top of the top of the top because I wanted to help humans. And I thought if I just learned every freaking possible thing, and if I was stared into microscopes longer and saw patterns better and was more innovative than everybody before me, I could save a human. And that was what I really wanted. I wanted to just save a human. And everybody was just dying around me faster and faster and faster and faster to the point where I knew I was part of the problem. And I realized I was poisoning my patients, not helping my patients. And it was my chemotherapy that I had developed that made it all the way to clinical trials. And it was the very first patient in my very first clinical trial that blew up my world. I'd been 17 years in academia, and this woman sitting at the bedside, she had a tumor in her head that had no treatment in our pantheon of the Western medical world. But my chemo was the promise. I had developed the first chemotherapy that wasn't a poison. It was actually a nutrient. I had found a way to feed cancer cells such that they would eliminate themselves. So I was super excited about this. I was like, this is a revolution. We don't need to poison our patients anymore. We can just feed their cancer cells, and the cancer cells will realize their cancer, and they'll eliminate themselves. So that was 2008. And I thought, oh, my God, I'm going to get a Nobel Prize for this one. This is going to be crazy good. And I sat down at the bedside, and I was convincing this patient. She was admitted to our clinical research center, which we try to make it feel like maybe a Holiday Inn or something like that instead of a hospital bed. And so it's like a slightly upgraded hospital room. And sitting there 9 o'clock at night, admitting her for this clinical trial. She'd be the very first patient to put this into her body. Safest chemotherapy that really been on the market. I told her about the safety and how it had performed in our little studies and everything else. And she's like, this is great. This is amazing. I feel very privileged to be in this place. And then the nurse comes walking in what looks like a hazmat suit, carrying 6 green capsules in her hand. And I'm as startled as the patient. I'm like, oh, my gosh. You remember that scene where in Back to the Future where he wakes him up with the headphones on and he's got that hazmat suit on and he thinks it's an alien? That's what our experience was. Like this nurse comes in like this alien garb, hazmat suit, 6 green capsules glowing in her hand. It's like, just swallow these. And the patient was like, how come she can't even touch them and you want me to swallow them? Like, how is this going on? And I was like, I don't know. But it turned out that was the policy of the hospital. Clinical drugs not used before have to be treated as if they're a hazardous material. So then it took me another hour to convince this woman to swallow those 6 capsules. To do that, I had to break her intuition. I didn't know I was doing that at the time, but I felt terrible at the end of that hour, and I couldn't figure out why for a couple years. I had this gross knot in my stomach because I had broken her intuition that she didn't need these 6 capsules. And I had used fear, I'd used guilt, shame. I brought her kids into the equation, like, you're young kids, you're young, you're cancer, there's no other treatment. Fear, guilt, shame, everything. And finally, she asked this potent question. What do these 6 capsules have to do with the reason I have cancer? And I had had an answer to every other question she had asked, and I had no answer to that one, and it was a terrifying question because I immediately, of course, extrapolated that to every other drug that was treating 18,000 diseases that I had been taught existed. I only understood humans as a list of 18,000 diseases, and I understood and had mastered 40,000 drugs to treat the 18,000 diseases, and I knew too much about all of that. And then with one question, what does any of that have to do with the reason I got this disease? It would take me another 40 minutes after that question to make her forget she'd asked the question and to make her forget that I hadn't answered the question. And she swallowed those 6 capsules and everything was fine. She wasn't hurt. Everything was good. But I was destroyed. She poisoned my reality with that one question. And I couldn't shake it. And so over the next year, I extracted myself, fell out of my head into my heart space, and started a clinic in rural Virginia to see if I could use nutrition as a pathway to reversing chronic disease. And my whole world today would emerge out of that system. But I had to go into the wound of the understanding that I had been led down this very dark path and led down a rabbit hole that I seemingly couldn't get out of. And I found my way out through the heart. And so I started building companies, and I built nonprofits, and I built all this stuff in the heart. And it's been a messy 15 years trying to build in the heart. Disaster. The timer, thank you. A messy, messy time between the years. And I broke my heart over and over again. I came through 2 divorces. I came through being a single dad for a number of years. I came through a lot of collapses of companies and a lot of turnover of leadership teams. And we'd all come into it so heart-centric. We'd come into marriages heart-centric. We'd come into the companies mission-centric. It's Mother Earth. We're actively going to heal things. People, planet, we're building from the heart. It was a freaking disaster. I built so much more effectively from my mind than I did my heart. I was so much better in 17 years of academia building from my head than I was building from my heart. And I was in such a deep state of denial that I had to nearly destroy all my companies last year through that denial phase of watching us crash into the cliff and not believing we were crashing into the cliff and then not believing we were falling off the cliff because I was convinced, well, we're building from the heart. Right? Why is this not working? But in the same way where you finally reach the end of your capacity to hold yourself in an artificial space like your mind and you fall into your heart, I had been holding myself in an artificial space called the human heart, and I had fallen into something called stillness. And so that just happened a few months ago, and now when I look back over my lifetime, I can't believe that I believed any of it for a moment. When I look up into my mind from this quiet space in my belly, who thought I was going to figure out anything up there? It's like this ridiculous flow of energy. Like it's just like all over the place, and the whole cosmos is trying to be figured out by a little tiny finite gray matter that's plugged into a microbiome of my gut, and the whole bacterial system is talking to my brain all the time, and I think I've got an idea. There's no way I'm going to intelligently design a future. And if you tell me we've built AI off of human words, we're fucked. Because if it's scanning all of the words that humans have ever made, all it's doing is magnifying the hallucination that we know what the hell's going on. There's no way it's intelligent. And so we need to move into silence. And I offer you this opportunity, if I can be the very first person perhaps ever to give you permission to get the fuck out of your heart. Get out of your heart, people. It is not a good place to build from. That is the place that you witness the creation. That is not where you create from. Stop trying to create from the heart. You are creating chaos in your relationships. You're creating chaos in your companies. You're creating chaos on this planet by trying to build from the heart. You have built this value system where love is the most important thing, and love is the fabric of everything. No, it's not. Love is the frequency generated by a sentient being when it sees beauty. Love is the frequency generated by a sentient being when it sees the beauty. That's it. It is not the fabric of everything. The fabric of everything is beauty. Feel that in your body and be reassured that we are close to our magnificence. Because if love was the fabric of everything, we are just going to go extinct, period, because we are so far from understanding that it's impossible. If we needed to understand and utilize love effectively before we survived, we die. But if beauty is the fabric of everything, I can tell you that this child that was just waving at herself does not need to be taught that the ocean is beautiful. She does not need to be explained that the sunset creates beauty. Every single one of you knows how to witness the fabric of the universe, and you're doing it constantly, and you're doing it in a participatory way when you create your art. Reframe your companies, reframe your products, reframe it in the context of how am I participating in the beauty of everything? What is my art? Do your art with joy. Do your art with a sense of passion. Do your art with a sense of wonderment that you're going to be able to show another human being, or you're going to show the trees around you, you're going to show our Mother Earth yourself, something that hasn't existed before. So put your pen to paper and write the poem. Put your brush on the canvas and paint. Create a company that's never existed before. Put a product into nature that nature is able to accelerate her generative engine of carbon to carbon to carbon, water to water to water. Witness the beauty of nature in everything you're doing and make nature your art and let her work the art through you. And the only way you're going to do that is stop trying to create from your heart. Stop trying to do it from love. In your effort to make love the goal, you keep creating codependence. I've done this my whole life. I have been creating codependencies in my companies. I've created it in my relationships because I thought I was supposed to be generating from the heart. Get out of your hearts and witness the beauty of a human heart. And then we will stop killing children in distant lands, because we will see the beauty of a human heart for the first time, but you cannot see what you dwell within. You got to get out of the water to see the beauty of the ocean. And so get out of the heart and go into your womb. This is our final frontier. We got out of our heads. We got into our hearts. We got to get down here. We got to get into the Dantian. We got to get into the most silent place. If a mother was supposed to birth a child from her heart, the womb would be fucking right here. It is not. It is down here. This is your quiet space. When we start to create from down here, Mother Nature will do her greatest work through us. Something magnificent happens in a womb. It is the ultimate in surrender. For a mother to become a mother, a woman in her sovereign body, every cell hers, every cell imbued with an imprint of her soul, such that she knows all of her cells, even in a non-linear, non-geographical way. You could draw a tube of her blood and take it to some distant shore, and then give her an aspirin, and the platelets in that distant tube would immediately react to the aspirin. She is non-local. The mother is a sovereign being that is quantum entangled with every cell that's come from her one cell that she built in her mother's womb into a 70 trillion celled organism that would rebuild itself every millionth of a second for the duration of a human life. That sovereign being, in order to birth another, has to completely surrender the womb to God. She does that with progesterone. If a mother, for an instant, sees what's happening inside of her womb, her immune system kills the infant immediately. That's a lot of miscarriages. Miscarriages are largely the immune system of the mother not having enough progesterone, wipes it out, not because it has any anger, but it's just not her material. She can't survive if some foreign material is growing inside of her. For a mother to birth a child, she has to blind herself completely to what happens in the womb, and she does that through progesterone. There is a chemical made by the woman's body that would blind herself to the miracle of life within her. That's the ultimate surrender at the cellular level. I believe that if we are going to do our great work as humans and we're going to stay here and play, we're going to get out of our head, we're going to get out of our heart, we're going to get down into our womb, and we're going to surrender everything to Source and say, I am yours. I trust whatever is going to come through me. And I'm going to do it without judgment, and I'm going to do it with patience. And I'm not going to let anybody else tell me whether this is good or bad, what comes through me. I'm going to let you express the future humanity through me. There are so many women that have come to this planet right now not to birth a baby, but to birth a future humanity. There are so many men who have come here to witness the birthing of a new humanity. We are here to hold the space. We do not protect. We will end all wars when we let go of the false belief that men are here to protect. The masculine does not protect in nature, for it is unmoving. How could it actually protect? It is the thing, it is the space between. It's the space that witnesses the flow of life. How could it protect? All it can do is witness. But when you tell men that they are responsible for protecting their children and everything else, all we can think of is, I need bigger planes and bombs. I need to go to war. I need a bigger spear. I need to attack before they attack because it's apparently my responsibility to create safety for my tribe. When the masculine is released from the belief that we protect, we will come into our greatest moment. Release us of the belief that we are your king. We are not your king. We are your witness, queens. We are just your witness. I am not here to be your king. I have no ability to be your king. I have been destroyed in the relationships in their effort to make me their king. Stop making me a king and let me be the child that will, in wonderment, see the beauty of the art that comes through you. Surrender me to be the child. Let me be that child. And I will show you my artwork, and I will let you show me yours. And we will do beauty. So what the hell is the man supposed to do if he's not here to protect? This was all given to me by an incredible oracle that was answering my question of my frustration of the balance of the masculine and feminine within myself. How do I find it? How do I know it's balanced? She's like, that's the stupidest thing ever. Stop it. Stop this whole masculine feminine balance thing. Stop it. You are perfectly balanced in your masculine and feminine. It's impossible that you're not because you birthed yourself in your mother's womb. You do not come from your mother. You do not come from your father. You come from your source. You come from your soul designing itself in your mother's womb that was surrendered outside of herself by progesterone. You are divine. You come from your own divinity. You are complete. You have to be masculine and feminine balance. Stop telling the masculine within you that it is there to protect and let it do its greatest work, which is to open the heart. The masculine is here to open the heart. The man you've always been looking for is inside of you. The woman that you've been trying so hard and desperately to please is inside of you. Let go of each other, humans. Get out of your fucking hearts. You're killing each other in that space. You're destroying each other with the viciousness of a human heart when it's used in its wrong polarity. Let go of the heart. Fall into your womb. Surrender it through to source. You are whole. You're masculine, feminine, balanced. Let the flow come through your womb. Let yourself produce the future that we all want to live in. And we'll do that together when we start to breathe more carefully and more aware because of the pain that we've created for one another and in our own bodies. So honor the pain. Let go of the judgment. Go into the womb. Get out of your heart. Be in peace. Go into silence. Let go of the activism. Be in peace. Go into stillness. Be in stillness. Be in stillness. Create from there. It's going to come through you. The future emerges. It is not something created. And so as our tech companies run around in these years to come and say, we have this thing and we have this thing, and there's this new light therapy you need to live to 180 years, please just do not do it. Please just do not do it. Go outside. Lay down under a tree. Breathe with the tree. Stop biohacking and experience biology. She does not need to be hacked. She is the mother. She is the father. She is the whole thing. Stop hacking her to pieces with your technology. Be still. Rebirth yourself every millionth of a second. Rebirth, 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 rebirth. You are 10,000 times brighter than the sun. Do not be diminished. Rise. Spin your field faster. Protect yourself more. Let go of those people that you hold most dear. Let go of your children. Let go of your spouse. Let go of your parents. Spin faster your magnetic field. Get your electromagnetic field ready for a pole shift. The pole shift is coming and you are part of the change of polarity. And when the polarity shifts, there will be peace on earth for the first time in a many, many millennia. The last time the polarity shifted in human consciousness was with King Solomon, and that was a moment of peace on earth for 30 years. There has not been peace since. We just need to change the polarity of the human perception, and peace will come. And so my goal is to set out a path to join all of you in a new public paradigm where we're going to reinvent politics into political science. We're going to start to practice natural law at the political level. We are going to practice politics at the level of biology. We're going to start to make biology and our keystone species role, our birthright, the magnificent center point of a human system that we would call global politics. And we will give a vision by 2028 that there will be a whole generation born on this planet that will know no war. Just one. And if we decide that we need war later, we will go back and we will war. And we will do it big and we'll fight dirty and we'll do all the things. But just for one generation, we will do it in peace. I want one generation of children birthed to see if we can save the human species. To play a different game. To recreate itself. To rebirth itself in an environment of non-judgment. Letting go of the judgment, letting go of the activism, and become peaceful and silent. I can't wait to be there on the other side of that with you. Let's go into this future, creating everything moment by moment by the nature that comes through us. I'm so honored to be with each of you. Zaina, thank you for bringing us into a future that we all want.